Good evening and welcome. Tonight we're going to be reading through this book about Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. I'm currently highlighting Belgium on my channel, and ignore my cat grooming himself over there. And we're going to highlight the Netherlands next month, like literally right at the start of the next month. So I figured, why not just get into this book now and read more about this region known as Benelux. And I've got the brush. It's been a long time since I did a brushing video, and I've got so many requests for it. And I figured this is a good book to bring it back, and I'll brush over lots of the pictures for you guys to see how it goes. So let's just dive right in. Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. Also, I am horrendous at pronouncing Dutch, so if I mispronounce something, please correct me if you know the correct pronunciation, because I'm hopeless at Dutch. The Benelux countries: Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg are small, densely populated nations in northwestern Europe, collectively known as the Benelux countries. The Benelux flag is up here, it says. The big lion. For centuries, these countries were ruled by the same foreign powers, but since gaining independence, they have played an important role in Europe and as colonial powers in countries such as the Congo and Indonesia. Over the last 50 years, they have grouped together economically to exploit their position at the crossroads of Europe. Let's start with Luxembourg. Down here. The Grand Duchy of Luxembourg covers just 998 square miles and has a population of around 450,000. Osling, the northern region, is wooded and hilly, while Goodland in the south is flatter. As a tax haven, Luxembourg is also a major center for commerce and banking. Look at these steeples. Steeple, steeple, steeple. The Netherlands. The Kingdom of the Netherlands is often mistakenly called Holland, which in fact is only a region within the country. The kingdom occupies 13,104 square miles and has a population of over 16 million. The word Netherlands means low countries. It is mostly flat, with much of the land below sea level. And we have Belgium. The Kingdom of Belgium covers 11,787 square miles and has a population of over 10 million. It is often described as being the shape of a bunch of grapes. Like the Netherlands, much of Belgium is low-lying and linked by a complex system of canals. The Ardennes region in the southeast is more mountainous. The capital, Brussels, over here, is both a major commercial and industrial center and home to the European Parliament. Let's see what we have over here. There we go. Population pressure. The Benelux countries are among the most densely populated areas in the world. The Netherlands averages 745 people per square mile, compared to 386 people per square mile in the UK and just 43 per square mile in North America. This tends to mean busy streets, crowded highways, and very few large areas of open land without any buildings. In all three countries, the vast majority of the population is urban. Place in Europe. The Benelux countries form a wedge in northwestern Europe, with the North Sea to the west, North Germany to the east, and France to the southwest. Britain is a short journey across the North Sea. They have long exploited their position by building their prosperity on trade with these three large neighbors. Language frontiers. There we go. The Benelux countries are a patchwork of language groups. In the Netherlands, people speak Dutch, except in Friesland, where they speak Frisian. Luxembourg has its own language, Luxembourgish, though French and German are official languages too. Belgium is split into Flanders, where they speak Flemish, a form of Dutch, and Wallonia, where they speak French. A minority speak German. Why are they important today? After the Second World War, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg formed the Benelux Customs Union. This made trade easier between them and helped them operate as a stronger bloc in competition with larger nations. They made up 3 of the 6 countries to sign the Treaty of Rome in 1957, which brought the common market into being. This has since developed into the European Union. Let's get into some history. There we go. The flat countryside has made the region easy for foreign powers to invade. The Romans arrived in 58 BCE, led by Julius Caesar, conquering all the land up to the Rhine. During the 14th century, the French House of Burgundy and then the Austrian House of Habsburg took control, both attracted by the area's prosperity. In the 16th century, Protestantism reached the northern provinces and the modern Netherlands, which split away while Belgium and Luxembourg remained under the Catholic Spaniards. It says here that's a Celtic bracelet. Down here it says cloth guilds. In the Middle Ages, the cloth-working trade made cities like Ghent and Bruges among the richest in Europe. Feudal lords gave charters to merchant guilds. These gave the merchants special privileges and made them rich and powerful. To join a guild, it was necessary to serve an apprenticeship of several years, and no one could trade without belonging to the guild. This is a peasant wedding. The Belgae Tribe. Of all the people of Gaul, said Julius Caesar, the Belgae are the bravest. The Romans defeated this Celtic tribe in 57 BCE and called the area Belgica. In the 3rd century CE, Belgium was divided between Germans in the north and Celts in the south, the origin of its language split. The Burgundians and Habsburgs. Prior to the 11th century, foreign rulers took little interest in the Low Countries, but when thriving fishing, shipping, and textile industries developed, the French dukes of Burgundy were quick to take control. They achieved this by a combination of inheritance, marriage, money, and war. Under the Burgundians, trade and the arts continued to flourish in the region. Through marriage, authority passed to the Austrian Habsburgs in 1477, but in 1506 the region came under Charles V, King of Spain, who was born in Ghent. People said this empire was so vast that the sun never set on it. When the Netherlands split off, Belgium and Luxembourg remained Habsburg dominions until Napoleon invaded in 1795. The Reformation Era. Make sure you can see. The Reformation was a 16th century movement to reform the church. Many felt that the Catholic Church had grown corrupt and preferred the austere Protestant beliefs of Martin Luther and John Calvin. The Spanish considered themselves defenders of the Catholic faith and were incensed by the spread of Protestantism. Charles V's son, King Philip, was this guy, King Philip II, tortured, imprisoned, and executed Protestants to try and control them. But the Dutch grew rich, despite long wars against the Spanish, and they achieved full independence in 1648. Here's William the Silent. William, Prince of Orange, was a moderate man who was horrified by the brutal Spanish regime of Philip II. He led the Revolt of the Netherlands, which began in 1566. Independence onward. Look who it is. The Dutch Golden Age came to an end in 1714, a year after Belgium and Luxembourg passed from Spanish back to Austrian control. At the end of the century, all three countries were conquered by Napoleon Bonaparte, and after his fall they were grouped together as the Kingdom of the Netherlands until Belgium and Luxembourg won their independence in 1830. After the destruction of 2 world wars, the three countries formed the Benelux Customs Union in 1947 to give them a better trading position. So look here, we can see Waterloo. Waterloo, a town near Brussels, saw Napoleon's final defeat in 1815. After returning from exile on Elba, he fought on for 100 days, until defeated by an army under Wellington and Leopold I. Leopold became the first king of the Belgians in 1831. Despite constant friction between Walloons and Flemings, Leopold's diplomacy held together the fledgling country, with powerful neighbors threatening to devour. A colonial past. The Netherlands colonized Indonesia and Suriname in the 17th century. Indonesia was the base for the Dutch East India Company's trade with the Orient. The Dutch captured the Caribbean islands of Aruba and Antilles from the Spanish in 1634. Plus land around New York, then called New Amsterdam. Dutch settlers also founded the Cape Colony in 1652. The Afrikaners are their descendants. In the 19th century, Belgium colonized the African countries of Congo, Rwanda, and Burundi, which I have videos on all 3 of those countries now. A bridge too far. The paratroopers. One of the most daring actions of the Second World War took place in the Netherlands when 35,000 troops were dropped near the town of Arnhem in an attempt to capture the bridge over the Rhine. But the plan failed due to poor intelligence, and many paratroopers died needlessly. Wartime Heroines. Anne Frank was a German Jew whose family fled to Amsterdam to escape the Nazis in 1933. During Nazi occupation of the Netherlands, they hid in a secret room until they were betrayed. Anne died in Belsen concentration camp. Her diary was published in 1947 and made into a film. Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands, right here, won the admiration of her people during the war because of her constant encouragement of Dutch resistance. And down here we see the Atonium. The Atonium stands in the exhibition park in Brussels. It has become a symbol of the city. It is an aluminum model of a carbon molecule magnified 165 billion times, and it was built for the 1958 World's Fair. It was designed by the Belgian architect Eugene Waterkeen. The spheres are connected by escalators. Belgian cities. As many as 97% of Belgians live in towns or cities. Brussels is the largest Belgian city, and together with its suburbs is the only one with a population of over 1 million. Brussels is bilingual and claims to be the capital of Europe, with the European Parliament and hundreds of international companies and organizations located there. Belgian towns, a typical town square is shown right up here, are linked by the world's densest railroad network and by highways that that emanate from Brussels like spokes, which are easily identifiable from the air. Getting a little caught up in the brushing, but I like it. See, there's a cafe. Cafes with covered terraces are a popular place to enjoy conversation over coffee and pastry. Art Nouveau, Horta and Velde. Art Nouveau, which literally means new art, flourished around the start of the 20th century. Its characteristic plant and flower patterns and elegant curling lines became fashionable in architecture and the decorative arts. Baron Victor Horta, a Belgian architect, was one of the originators of Art Nouveau, as was Henri Clement van de Velde, who designed furniture, ceramics, metalwork, and textiles. Belgian chocolates. Belgian chocolates by manufacturers such as Godiva, Neuhaus, and Gartner are famous the world over for their quality. One reason why Belgian chocolates taste so good is because of the high percentage of milk fats used. One of the qualities of milk fats is that they melt just below body temperature, making them melt as soon as you put them in your mouth. Let's read about Antwerp up here. Antwerp, the largest city in Flanders, was once the hub of an international trading empire. With the decline of Bruges in the late 15th century, Europe's great trading families moved to Antwerp. Its golden age lasted less than 100 years, and the city declined until Napoleon revived its docks as a pistol pointed at the heart of England. Very Napoleon of him to say that. Today it is the center of the world's diamond trade. Here's Ghent and Bruges. You can see right here. Ghent, Bruges. There's Antwerp. Bruges was the capital of medieval Flanders and was Europe's chief wool manufacturing town and market. It is one of the best preserved medieval cities in Europe and takes its name from the word for bridge after the bridges over its canals. Ghent remains a major center for textiles and lace making. This talks about the Belgian Constitution. Belgium is a parliamentary democracy governed by rules first established in the 1830 Constitution. The king is the head of the state. Since 1970, some powers have been given up by central government. The Flemish, French-speaking, and German-speaking communities are responsible for education and cultural affairs. The Flanders, Wallonia, and Brussels regions are responsible for public works, transportation, and some social, economic, and administrative matters. The Belgian countryside. The Belgian countryside varies greatly. The north is similar to the Netherlands, flat and laced with canals and river deltas. To the southeast are the mountains and woodlands of the Ardennes. Elsewhere there are rolling fields. Agriculture accounts for only 2% of the workforce, but occupies nearly half the country's surface area and produces most of the country's food requirements. The temperate climate and fertile soil provide ideal conditions for growing foodstuffs, horticulture, and raising livestock. Belgium's most important rivers are Scheldt, Sambre, and Meuse. Let's see the coastline. Belgium's only natural frontier is its 49 miles of North Sea coastline, most of which has wide sandy beaches. Fishermen catch shrimps by the traditional method of dragging heavy nets on horseback through the shallow waters. Mussels are another very popular seafood in Belgium. What's in a face? The painter Frans Hals was born in Antwerp but spent most of his life in Haarlem in the Netherlands. He's best known for his ability to capture expressions on the faces of his subjects. Look at the painting A Family Group. How do you think the artist has conveyed the subject's feelings toward each other? That's a good facial expression, I suppose. Let's see what else. Walloons and Flemings. Belgium is divided by the 1500-year-old language frontier that splits the country into French and Dutch-speaking regions and affects all areas of Belgian life from road signs to posters. During the 19th century, the French-speaking Walloons were dominant, as Belgian industry was concentrated in the south. As the steel industry declined, the majority Flemish population became more influential. The Ardennes. The Ardennes region in the southeast has some of Europe's most spectacular scenery. The Ardennes is Belgium's least populated area and has little agriculture apart from some good grazing land. Its densely wooded valleys are home to a large variety of wildlife, such as wild boar, wild cats, deer, and pheasant. The Ardennes is particularly popular with hikers, as the mountains are not especially high but boast wonderful views. The area is also popular with skiers in the winter months. Mount Botrange, 2,278 feet, is the highest point in Belgium. Many local springs produce mineral-rich water that is bottled and exported. The town of Spa in the Ardennes has given its name to all towns with health-giving springs. Agricultural produce. Belgian farmers grow both modern and traditional crops. One of the oldest crops is flax, which produces linseed oil, the traditional ingredient of paints. The long fibers that form the stem of the flax plant can be woven into linen, a very strong cloth. Belgium is the world's largest producer of azaleas and is Europe's largest exporter of Christmas trees. Belgian farmers also export large quantities of sugar beet and potatoes. Belgian Leisure. The Belgians have a reputation for working hard and taking life seriously. The average working week is 38 to 39 hours, and most people have 4 weeks vacation per year. In their spare time, Belgians enjoy sports such as soccer, and during the year there are also many carnivals and processions. Education is very important in Belgium. Students spend more time at school than in almost any other country, and 25% of them go on to college. As Belgium is a small country surrounded by others, Belgians can easily pick up television programs from France, Germany, and Britain. Let's see, Macrae meets Tintin. Two of the world's most published authors are Belgian, and both created famous detectives. Georges Simenon wrote about the pipe-smoking Jules Maigret, and Hergé invented Tintin, the journalist turned sleuth. Simenon published over 500 novels, while Hergé published only 24 Tintin stories. Although their works have since been translated into dozens of languages and sold over 100 million copies. Hergé took his name by reversing the sounds of the French initials of his real name, Georges Remy. Let's see, we should read these. Education. Education is compulsory between the ages of 6 and 18 and is always in the language of the community. Belgium has 2 school systems, official schools, which are run by the government, and free schools, which are normally run by the Catholic Church. The bicycles. Bicycles are the ideal form of transportation in a flat country. Cycling is very popular as a sport, too. The Belgian Eddy Merckx, nicknamed the Cannibal, won the Tour de France, a record equaling 5 times. Sports and leisure. Belgians are very keen on sports, although many prefer to watch them rather than participate. Cycling and soccer are the most popular spectator sports. On Sunday afternoons, cycle races often take part in the streets of provincial towns. One of the stranger sports is pigeon racing, where pigeons are taken to a distant part of the country and have to find their way home as fast as possible. Hunting and fishing are popular, as are hiking and camping in the hills of the Ardennes. Eating out. many Belgians prefer their own company and that of close friends, and like to keep their home life private. Rather than invite friends to visit, they prefer to go out in the evening and enjoy a meal at a restaurant. Most Belgians are very fond of their food. Adolphe Sax. Born in Dinant, Sax is best known for inventing the saxophone in about 1840. He also produced other brass instruments such as the sax horn and sax tuba. Festivals and Carnival. Belgium has many different festivals. The origins of some are so old that they have been forgotten. Carnival is held just before Lent, a last celebration before 40 days of abstinence. At Mons, there is a reenactment of St. George's battle with the dragon. For 500 years, the clowns of Binch have paraded with ostrich feathers to mark the arrival of the first South American Indians in Europe. At Ypres, in the Festival of the Cats, model cats and witches are thrown into the crowd. There are also Belgian festivals to celebrate the harvest. Oh, this is a recipe to make beef carbonate. I'll skip that. Belgian resources. Belgium was swift to industrialize, yet today its prosperity is based on services, which employ over 70% of the workforce. Its location has made it a major trading nation, and it is heavily dependent on international trade, as it has few natural resources of its own. Almost 2/3 of all economic activity take place in Flanders. The most important industries are metallurgy, machine and motor construction, food, and chemicals. Import-export. International trade is so important to the Belgian economy that 1 Belgian in 2 works for the export industry. More than 50% of national production is exported. Belgium imports raw materials like iron ore and exports finished or semi-finished products such as steel and machinery. Belgium's steel industry used to be based near the coal fields in Wallonia. These mines are now exhausted, and today the industry is oil-powered, so the steel plants have been moved to Flanders near the oil ports. This move shifted the power balance between Wallons and Flemings. Diamond cutting. A Belgian master cutter may examine an uncut diamond for weeks before cutting it. The rough diamond is held in a dop, or shell. An incision is made, and the diamond is then expertly split. To create each facet, the tiny surface that make diamonds sparkle, the stone is held against a diamond-dusted disc. A diamond-dusted disc at a precise angle. Antwerp Port. Antwerp on the Scheldt River is 55 miles from the sea, but it is still Europe's second largest port. It became a major port in the 15th century, when the larger port at Bruges became blocked by storms. By the early 16th century, Antwerp was full of foreign businesses dealing with the rest of Europe. Water transport is still vital to Belgium's economy, with more than 1,240 miles of inland waterways. Antwerp handles over 20,000 ships each year from over 800 other ports, and claims to be the fastest in the world at unloading and reloading ships. Holy beers. The Belgians have long been great brewers, and today produce hundreds of different brands of beer. The recipes are often several hundred years old, and are well-kept secrets. In the Middle Ages, breweries were often run by monks. The abbeys encouraged the science of brewing and introduced hops to flavor the beer. A photographic pioneer. Leeuwengevert, which is not how you pronounce that. I'm almost 100% sure, but anyway, was a pioneer in the field of photography, especially in producing photographic materials. Born in Antwerp, he combined his skills as an inventor and businessman to improve the quality of photography and make it accessible to people. Belgian scientists. Abbé Lemaitre, an astrophysicist and priest, developed the Big Bang Theory to explain the origin of the universe. He believed that all matter was once condensed in an unimaginably dense state and has been expanding ever since. Etienne Lenoir invented the first practical internal combustion gas engine. Leo Baekeland immigrated to the US, where he invented Bakelite, a forerunner of modern plastics. Lace making. Belgian lace made from linen or cotton has been prized for centuries, made by twisting and braiding bobbins. It originated in Flanders in the 16th century and requires great craftsmanship and patience to make. By 1600, it was a luxury product worn by men and women. With the invention of a machine that copied handmade lace around 1840, prices fell and demand increased dramatically. From 1850 to 1914, an estimated 20,000 lace makers were based in the towns of Bruges, Ghent, and Brussels. Today, handmade lace is largely sold as a souvenir item. Moving on to Dutch cities. And again, apologies if I mispronounce some Dutch because I'm miserable at Dutch. But anyway, the Netherlands is one of the world's most densely populated countries. Most of the population is concentrated in Randstad, a conurbation in the west of the country, where most of the industry is also located. Each of the 4 major cities, all within a Randstad, have a population of over 200,000. Though the population is growing, a strong Dutch reaction to tower blocks has led to a synthesis of old and new architecture. To see the traditional bridge and modern housing. The Dutch capital is Amsterdam, but its seat of government is in The Hague. See, it says Amsterdam. Many of Amsterdam's streets are waterways lined with 17th century houses, earning it the nickname the Venice of the North. It is an important cultural center with many famous museums, a rich nightlife, characterful bars, and a notorious red light area. Double Dutch. A few Dutch words have made the leap into the English language, such as brandy, skate, skipper, and yacht. The word Yankee used to describe people from the northern states of the U.S. It may have begun as a nickname for Dutch colonists who arrived there. Cookie comes from the Dutch cookie. I hope at least. Religious differences. For centuries, religion played a key part in the division of Dutch society. Since the Second World War, these divisions, I won't try to say that, have faded, but even today, being a Protestant or Catholic can influence one's choice of newspaper, political party, school, or hospital. While Catholics represent just over 30% of the population and Protestants just over 20%, an even larger percentage of the Dutch now claim no religious affiliation. Here it talks about the traditional architecture. So pretty. Amsterdam's elegant gracht houses are deliberately narrow. Rich merchants demanded that their houses had access to the gracht, which provided drinking water, so the gable-fronted houses were tightly packed to make the most of the limited space. Even so, there's plenty of room inside, as the houses run a long way back. Amsterdam lies on marshy ground, so deep piles have to be driven to provide solid foundations. Street art. Dutch cities house many famous art museums, and the country has a long artistic tradition, although street art has few links in common with the past. While many consider such urban decorations colorful and inspired, others prefer their art to be more conventional. In busy cities, cycles are often painted in individual ways to attempt to deter bicycle thieves. Mata Hari, secret agent. Mata Hari was the stage name of Margaretha Geertruida Zelle, a Dutch dancer. During the First World War, she seduced many high-ranking officials and leaked Allied secrets to the Germans. She may have been a double agent for both France and Germany, but she was eventually shot by the French for espionage. Let's see. The Dutch countryside. Fewer than 4% of the Dutch population work in agriculture and fishing. Although half the land in the Netherlands is cultivated and provides large surpluses for the export of crops. Agriculture ranges from bulb growing, like you can see up here, and dairy farms to the fruit farms of the Gelderland province. Half of the Netherlands is below sea level, and much of the land is reclaimed from the sea. The provinces are made up partly of intensively farmed countryside, where people live in modest gabled houses, and partly in garden suburbs, where new towns lie in the midst of rape fields and the inhabitants commute to the big cities. These strange pastimes. A number of unusual pastimes are found in the Netherlands, and especially in Friesland. One of these is Elfstedentocht, a 78-mile skating race on the frozen canals linking 11 towns. As many as 18,000 competitors take part. Pole vaulting over dikes is called vierlopen. Competitors who don't make it get a drenching. Wadlopen, or walking over mud flats at low tide, is also popular in the summer months. So, land reclamation. The Dutch have reclaimed so much land from the sea that, according to an old saying, God created the world, but the Dutch created Holland. Dutch history is tied to the struggle against the sea, and since the Middle Ages they have been reclaiming land by building dikes or raised earth banks around a lake. Water used to be pumped from the lake into a canal by windmills. That is now done by diesel pumps. The land that is left is called a polder and is often very fertile. In the 1930s, the 18-mile barrier dam was built across the Zuiderzee, creating the new province of Flevoland and the Ijsselmeer Lake. Goodness, I'm so bad at Dutch. Here's how to make a windmill out of a milk carton. Cheese. The Dutch cheese Gouda is sold in 4 forms, as bacteria in the cheese causes it to change with age. Jong is a creamy cheese. Belgian is 4 months old. Oud is 10 months old, while Overbelegen is a crumbly old cheese. Edam, with its famous red paraffin coat, was originally brushed with vermilion to distinguish it from other cheeses. Regional dress and clogs. Many of the simple and practical Dutch traditional costumes are still worn in rural areas. Zeeland, once inhabited by farmers and merchants, has the most sumptuous costumes, and the skippers brought back expensive materials from abroad. A modern klompen or clogs are sold. A million klompen or clogs are sold every year to Frisians who wear them as everyday shoes. These clogs are light and strong, unlike those in souvenir shops. Next we have Dutch leisure. Approximately 1/3 of the Dutch population are members of sports clubs. Soccer, hockey, tennis, and sailing are all popular, and many people skate on the frozen canals during the winter. Since the 17th century, Dutch artists from Rembrandt to Van Gogh have exhibited a distinctive national character in their paintings. Education is very important in the Netherlands. And the roots of the education system can be traced back to the Batavian Republic, a state established in the Low Countries by Napoleon. Let's read about food. It says, Dutch food is traditionally simple and wholesome, with different breads, plenty of vegetables, meat and fish, and lots of dairy produce. Warming dishes like hutspot, just carrots, onion, and potatoes mashed together, yummy, are especially good for bitter winters. Herrings are another specialty, traditionally eaten by holding the tail and dropping them into the mouth. Don't know how I feel about that. Environmental concerns. The Dutch are a very environmentally conscious nation, and the headquarters of Greenpeace, the international campaigning organization, is in Amsterdam. One campaign launched in 1990 under the slogan, "A better environment starts with you," spread the message that everybody could help. It encouraged people to buy environmentally friendly products, to separate kitchen and garden waste from household garbage, and use a bicycle instead of a car. There are now over 11 million bicycles in the Netherlands. Some people even move house by means of an old-fashioned bakfiets or baker's bicycle. Sports. Soccer is the most popular sport in the Netherlands. The Dutch international side is renowned for attacking, imaginative soccer, and has produced many great players such as Johan Cruyff, the Flying Dutchman, Ruud Gullit, famous for his dreadlocked headers, and Ruud van Nistelrooy. Athletics, swimming, riding bicycles, and tennis are all popular, as are winter sports like sailing. Walking events such as the Nijmegen Marathon are highly organized, but are as much communal activities as competitive sports. In some towns in Zeeland, kroelballen, a form of bowling, is played, while in Friesland there are scootseasling, races in flat-bottom sailing boats. Let's read about the royal family. The royal family. Crowned in 1980, Queen Beatrix is the head of state of the Netherlands, Aruba, and the Antilles. The monarchy is extremely popular, partly because the House of Orange was closely linked to the struggle for independence, and partly because the modern royal family are regarded as being very down-to-earth. The Dutch people tend to mock any camponses or self-importance. She looks like Sigourney Weaver right here. The Dutch masters. The Netherlands has produced an astonishing number of world-class artists for such a small nation. The works of Dutch 16th and 17th century masters, such as Hieronymus Bosch, Rembrandt, Hals, and Vermeer, this painting is called the Lijstmaker, can obviously tell by Vermeer, command fortunes on the international art market. In the 19th and 20th centuries, artists like Van Gogh and Mondrian broke new ground artistically, although it wasn't always recognized during their lifetimes. Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers is among the world's most famous pictures, but Vincent sold only one painting during his lifetime to his brother, and ended his life at the scene of his last work. Here's Van Gogh's painting, The Lilac Bush. Dutch resources. The Netherlands has exploited its location in Europe to become a major trading nation. Standing at the mouth of the Rhine, Maas, and Waal rivers, the country plays a leading part in world trade, and Rotterdam is the world's busiest port. Major industries are food, alcohol, tobacco, chemicals, oil refining, and metallurgy. The Netherlands is also Europe's largest supplier of natural gas. Today, famous firms such as Oxo, Unilever, Shell, and Philips fly the Dutch flag abroad. Let's see. This is the Royal Dutch Airlines, but let's read about energy. The Netherlands is Europe's largest producer and supplier of natural gas, most of which comes from the North Sea. Approximately 95% of homes are connected to the gas network, and it is also used to generate electricity The Netherlands produces some of its own oil, but the refineries at Rotterdam use oil brought from around the world. The government promotes a variety of energy-saving campaigns and also invests in the search for alternative energy sources such as wind power. Here's the very famous waterways. The Netherlands has 2,690 miles of navigable canals, and waterways carry goods deep into the European mainland or ship them out to export around the world. Rotterdam, which you see here, is accessible to the world's largest tankers and is also the port. Oh, this is Rotterdam. This is also the port with the largest turnover, over 300 million tons of goods a year in the world. Of all the goods loaded or unloaded in the European Union, 30% pass through Dutch ports. Dutch carriers perform about half of all water trade in the EU, and the Netherlands has more rivercraft than any other country. Canals also help drain the country's low-lying land and boost tourism, as they are an attractive part of the landscape. You can see the Delft ware. Super pretty. Delft, in the western Netherlands, is famous for its distinctive porcelain. Although the town has produced pottery for many years, when traders brought porcelain back from China in the early 1600s, potters started to copy the blue and white designs. By the mid-17th century, there were Delft vases and bowls everywhere, decorated with landscapes, flowers, ships, and portraits. Read about tulips. I think this is what everyone thinks of when they think of the Netherlands, are tulips and windmills and Amsterdam, but anyway, tulips. The Netherlands, known as the florist of Europe, exports more flowers than the rest of the world combined. The tulip, which probably came from China originally, now attracts thousands of tourists to the famous tulip fields between Leiden and Haarlem. Modern techniques such as growing cuttings and test tubes are increasingly common. With this method, up to 1 million disease-free seedlings a year can be grown from a single healthy plant. Let's read about Luxembourg. Luxembourg, an independent sovereign state. Who is an independent sovereign state? In the north of the country are the beautiful Ardennes Hills, and to the east is the grape-growing Moselle Valley. The south is mainly rolling farmland, although the old mining region is also here. About a third of the country is forested. Thanks to the wealth created by industry and finance, Luxembourg has one of the highest standards of living in Europe. Its name comes from the Anglo-Saxon, which means little fortress. We're going to cover Luxembourg in my series for a long time, so let's enjoy this. Let's see the country. The northern part of Luxembourg, known as the Osling, consists of forested hills, meandering rivers, and narrow valleys. The Gutland in the south, I guess that's what this is a more gentle landscape of woodland, lush meadows and vineyards. Ruined castles and charming countrysides dot the landscape. Read about Luxembourg's capital. Luxembourg City was founded by the Romans, and its dramatic situation over the gorges of the Alzette and Petrus rivers make it easy to defend. The fortress was destroyed in 1554 by a gunpowder explosion. Today, Luxembourg is a peaceful city of cafe-lined streets and picturesque parks. 3 languages. As a tiny country, Luxembourg has long understood the need to communicate with its neighbors. As a result, the people of Luxembourg commonly speak at least 3 languages. Luxembourgish is the most common everyday language. French is used in most elementary schools and German in most secondary schools. Newspapers are in German and French is used in Parliament. Many people speak English fluently too. The Grand Duchy. Luxembourg was established as an independent state in 963. The Duchy of Luxembourg was established in 1354. The title of Grand Duke is hereditary, its holders belonging to the House of Nassau. Like Belgium, Luxembourg spent many centuries under the control of France, Spain, and Austria. In 1815, it became part of the Netherlands. Then in 1830, it declared its independence. During both World Wars, it was occupied by the Germans. Let's read about food and drink. There's some euros up here. Farmers in the Bon Pays, or Goods Land. I get it. Anyway, that's French for good land, and I think that's obviously good land. Or Goods Land region grow barley, oats, potatoes, and wheat. On the pasture land, there are large herds of cattle and sheep. Pork is a favorite food in dishes such as tripen, smoked pork with broad beans, and Ardennes ham. Kotchkies is one of the several local cheeses and is often eaten with fruit or grain liquors. Beer and white wine from the Moselle Valley are popular too. Redute, these beautiful flowers. Born in Saint Hubert in the Ardennes, Pierre-Joseph Redute began at the age of 13 a career that was to make him the most influential botanical artist of all time. In Paris, he worked for Josephine Bonaparte, creating over 600 vellum drawings that are still studied today. An independent spirit. The people of Luxembourg are independent and content, as expressed in the line from their national anthem, Ons Hemecht, our homeland, which runs, it says, "We want to remain what we are." Luxembourg is sometimes seen as a model for the future Europe, a truly cosmopolitan place that has maintained its individuality. Let's see, this will be the last page. Here we go, today and tomorrow. Home to many important world and European organizations, the Benelux countries are well placed to take advantage of European Union. As small countries with a history of foreign interference, they are used to dealing with their neighbors and adapting quickly to changing needs. Although language differences will continue to create tension, the fiercely independent cultures and healthy economies of all three countries will ensure that their influence continues to be felt across the globe. Let's read about the center of power. The Benelux countries managed to exert such strong influence worldwide, partly because they are home to so many important international organizations. The World Trade Center is in Rotterdam, there. NATO and the European Parliament are in Brussels, and the European Court of Justice and other European Union buildings are situated in Luxembourg City. Maastricht. The Benelux countries are fervent pro-Europeans and will understand the advantages of working together with their neighbors. The Maastricht Treaty, signed in 1992 in the Dutch city of that name, committed the member nations of the European Union to work toward greater unity in the future and give increased powers to the European Parliament in Brussels. The liberal tradition. The Netherlands has a long tradition of liberalism and tolerance stretching back to the 16th century. Also influenced by the youthful counterculture of the 60s, the Dutch believed that a relaxed, open attitude towards drugs reduces abuse. There are even smoking cafes for soft drug users. This is all part of a general live and let live attitude. The Dutch have also had more success than other nations in controlling hard drugs. Tourism. Tourism is an important sector of the economy in the Benelux countries. The canals and islands of the Netherlands, the medieval cities of Belgium, and the spectacular forests and river valleys of Luxembourg provide a variety unmatched in such a small area anywhere else in Europe. All these attractions are easily reached by excellent highways, railroads, and rivers. The struggle against the sea. The Dutch and the Belgians of Flanders have centuries of experience in the fight against the sea. Although their expertise has produced some of the most ingenious engineering solutions for holding back the sea and turning the water into land, they now face another problem. Global warming is threatening to increase the temperature of the world and to melt some of the ice at the polar caps. If the sea level rises by only several feet, then the area below sea level in the Netherlands, which is home to 60% of the population, may be under threat. In spite of centuries of foreign rule, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg have each carved a unique identity for themselves. Since the Second World War, their economic union has allowed them to establish economic stability and a good standard of living, a solid platform for future prosperity. And that's the end of our book tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a very good night. Good night.